So, this video was going to be titled something like, we need to talk about the Superman test screening, leaks, and details and what the heck's going on there. But there's more news that came out to the point of where I feel like I have to make another long, rambly news roundup video. And I'm delighted because I didn't know that I'd be making another news roundup this week, but the other stories that I'm talking about in today's video are absolutely worth talking about. But to begin with, in today's video, for fans of the Batverse, we've got even more encouraging details. Not necessarily about the Batman Part 2, but the whole The Batman Epic Crime Saga universe, and what more we could be getting out of it, which is, again, another encouraging thought in of itself, because, you know, the more we get, the clearer it is that this universe isn't being canned. So Deadline came out with an article saying that the Penguin EP and showrunner Lauren Lefranc on season 2, initially, we have her saying about the Penguin season 2 and just the Penguin in general that I fully arced everything, says the showrunner. She was also asked, as far as other spin-off series related to the Batman, she talks about how we're in the early stages. Now, this is a sit-down talk with Deadline, so I listened to the actual full quote of what she said, and it made me quite excited, the fact that this is still being actively discussed behind the scenes, to the point of where I think we will be getting somewhere with it, because the Penguin was massively successful. Have you had discussions with Matt about doing possibly another Batman spin-off, but focused on another character such as Selina Kyle? Now, Lauren Lefranc says, I think a lot of those things are potentially on the table. We're in the early stages of digging into what that might look like and how that might play out. This show is intended to be the bridge between the first film and the second film. So when the second film is ready to go, I think that will give us a clearer picture of when a second season of The Penguin could happen, in terms of the time that takes place within Gotham, but that doesn't prohibit us from digging into other stories within Gotham if those feel correct, but aren't fully contingent on the second film. So we're kind of in an exploratory phase, but there's a lot of really interesting things, I think, that are there that could be really rich that I'm excited about. That is music to my ears. It's a very candid response. She's talking about how the Penguin is clearly a bridge between the first and the second film. So obviously, you know, when, you know, the second film is truly ready to go, that will give them all a clearer picture of when a second season could take place. But I love how she said this doesn't prohibit us from digging into other literal stories, right, within Gotham, and that aren't contingent on the second film taking place. So essentially not having to wait for it, or you can just do another story as another bridge, technically. So as the interviewer asked, Selina Kyle, I know a lot of you guys have thought about that. Or just insert any other character here, so long as, I guess, yes, it's rich and it's got a story of substance that you can tell within Matt Reeves' epic crime saga and microcosm here of Gotham. Now, when it comes to being prohibited by the second film, I do think there's more to explore there as well. Long story short here, I'm going to attempt to keep it short because I've talked about this quite a bit in the discussion series for the Batman we have on the channel. There is the potential of Harvey Dent, a character that a lot of us are expecting to see in the second film introduced as the replacement district attorney for Gil Colson, who, you know, had his head blow up in the first film. Harvey Dent could very much so be a fantastic antagonist, if you will, to the Penguin's own villainy continuing in a second season. Because Harvey wouldn't want to keep letting Oz slip away, like worm his way out of these situations. And Oz wouldn't stand someone like Harvey being that thorn in his side from preventing him to maybe even getting to the mayoral part of his story. However, what I'm talking about here is a continuation in the Penguin's story and where I think Lauren Lefranc could take it. At the same time, a big takeaway, as I was getting into earlier, is that they are literally looking at other spin-off shows that aren't fully contingent on the second film. So you could argue that they could do a Harvey Dent independent series. You could have Selena Kyle. You could have maybe other series based on other Rogues Gallery characters out there. So like, I don't know, Jonathan Crane to whoever else, right? Professor Pig were names that we were hearing from the Hollywood Reporter that Matt Reeves was meeting with writers and directors exploring ideas like a couple of years ago. I think that there is truth in all of this stuff. And I think bottom line at the end of this little Batverse ramble here, this is fantastic news. In addition to recent news with the epic crime saga overall, with James Gunn saying that there is encouraging updates about the Batman Part 2 that obviously can't be spoken about quite so publicly right now, hearing Lauren Lefranc say all of this is just great. Like behind the scenes, albeit this is a very long cooking session, they are cooking nonetheless. We don't quite know what it is, but I guess I would turn that around on you guys now. What do you think the arc of the Penguin Season 2 should be? But what other spin-off series would you like to see explored? That Lauren Lefranc here feels very confident that there's a lot of really interesting things that could be really rich that she's excited about, that aren't the Penguin. Okay, so now moving over to the DCU and Superman. So we have an update on one of the stories I got into in my previous news roundup video, and that is, of course, that the runtime, Gunn debunked it. It is not 2 hours and 2 minutes. He says that's not correct. It's almost totally locked, meaning we're just finishing a couple of VFX shots over the weekend, but that's not the running time. Now, the reason why that was reported is because I believe that runtime was being sent around and distributed in an official capacity to different theaters or something like that. But that's still kind of like a almost IMDb reliability in a sense, which I should have mentioned in my previous video. However, with the test screening details that we're going to get into a little bit later on, I do think that, yes, some runtime could have been trimmed off the movie in its kind of perfecting process as you test screen things. So future Boba here, we have even more freaking stories to talk about in today's video. We're going to get into a Lanterns casting, a potential casting in a second, but staying on track with Superman. Well, Superman is getting even more promo as we all expect, getting closer to the release date, and we've had a little bit of a David Corenswet training for Superman video. So you obviously have him working out there at the beginning, but then it starts teasing us with even more footage of the movie. Now, there's a couple of little goodies in this. The first thing that stood out to me is seeing Corenswet training in a harness there to kick. And so I know that's something super simple, but it would be pretty dope to see Superman do like a levitating kick into Ultraman or the Engineer or whoever. I'm kind of expecting some cool creative Superman powers and, fight moves in the stadium scene that we've seen in the trailers. But then, as it gets into the footage, we can see that Superman is going basically hand-to-hand combat mode with none other than Ultraman there. Now, just going by the dustiness of Superman's suit, that kind of reminds me of where he lands down in the street and the people help him up. I have no idea if those scenes really are connected, and if the trailer kind of made it look like that was immediately after the Hammer of Boravia, but really, it could have been him battling Ultraman here. And then the next goodie we get, if you will, is another angle of Superman throwing Lex's desk across his office. Now, in the other trailer, as you're seeing on screen right now, we can see the beginning of that happening, and the desk basically hits the window, and now we can see that he essentially just lifts it up and freaking yeets it over there. Now, this seems to also be after the kaiju fight, which is interesting. And I say that because Superman's got his battle damage suit on. It's kind of blackened from the fire. And then that shot of David Corenswet with the sun on his face. That's a good shot. Not to mention, we get a couple of extra looks of him walking kind of outside the Fortress of Solitude. And again, I know not everyone agrees. You may have your little nitpicks of the suit here and there, but look at him. David Corenswet is once again exuding Kal-El Superman energy here. It's probably in the bloody thumbnail of this video. But up next, guys, I absolutely have to talk about Lanterns with this casting rumor, because if it is true, I will be a very, very happy man, and I've got a theory as to who this actor could be playing. So, the word on the street is that Laura Linney has been cast in Lanterns. Now, I am a big fan of Laura Linney's. I absolutely loved her in Ozark. You've heard me talk about how that is something I'm excited of in of itself because of Chris Mundy was the showrunner of Ozark and he's working on Lanterns, and that makes one think, okay, did Chris Mundy reach out to Laura Linney being like, oh boy, do I have a role for you? Maybe not a huge role in the series, and I'll get into that in just a second, but nonetheless, I think, you would like to be in this prestigious HBO Lantern show if you want to be Laura. Maybe she was like, yeah, why not, right? She is amazing, and the thing is, this is coming from Jeff Snyder, who I will say, he does get things, Jeff Snyder's got a bit of a controversial name out there in the scooping reporting industry. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his name, but what I will say in his defense, just for argument's sake here, is that he does, as per being a reporter, get some things right. I know I say this a lot in videos, generally when it comes to scoopers, but I have a good feeling about this one. I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but I maybe I'm biased here and I just really want it to be true, but it does make sense to me. So, who could Laura Linney be playing, and why does it make sense as to why I could believe that she would be in the series? So, Chris Mundy, as I said, could have gone to her for the role of none other than Carol Ferris, Hal Jordan's love interest in the comics. Now, Carol Ferris has been a big, wondering thought from many fans when it comes to Lanterns, because there's a rumor that Kyle Chandler's Hal Jordan could very well have the love interest of Sheriff Kelly in the series. She's the sheriff of the town that Hal and Jon Stewart go to investigate. But my theory with that has always been that I'm not trying to say that Kyle Chandler's Hal Jordan's going to be like this disgruntled kind of Luke Skywalker and The Last Jedi type arc for the character, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have it such that if he's got a love interest, if that rumor does turn out to be true, that maybe he has been with Carol Ferris for decades, but maybe he lost her due to illness. I know not everyone will love that idea, but I do think that would be quite powerful when it comes to flashbacks. We know we're getting flashbacks in this series. We know that they've cast Jon Stewart's parents in present day, but also when he was younger. I suspect a similar thing with Hal Jordan. And Laura Linney is 61 years old and Kyle Chandler's 59. So the idea of Laura Linney being Carol Ferris really does match up. And by the way, I think Laura Linney and Kyle Chandler, chemistry-wise, not that I've seen them in the room together, but I could almost guarantee that they would work as the ages that they are in terms of Carol Ferris and Hal Jordan. You already know my thoughts on him playing Hal. I think it's really good for the ages that they're going for. So Laura really does kind of fit in with the Carol Ferris vibe. However, I don't know if she'd be in present day. So this is all assuming, by the way, that I'm going off the theory that he lost Carol. This is Carol. We might see some contextualized flashbacks as to what led into Hal being where he is today. I've already seen some people speculate about this and say, but that would mean Carol Ferris is bloody 60 or whatever. It's just like, how have you not already accepted that, we're getting older Hal Jordan here, 59 years old, and again, I do want to stress, the actor's real-life age doesn't reflect the age of Hal in the show, so Kyle Chandler could pull off a 49-year-old Hal, but that's kind of besides the point. My point is that Laura Linney, let's just say she was Carol Ferris in, 3 to 5 year flashbacks where Hal may have lost her to some kind of illness or something. She still matches Kyle Chandler's age, visually. So I don't get why, people need to accept, you don't have to like it, but you need to kind of accept that clearly we're getting an older Hal Jordan, and thus, if they keep the canon of Carol Ferris, she would also be older than someone in their 30s. So those are my thoughts on that. I really hope this is true. Laura Linney is fantastic. I would love to see some flashbacks with her and Hal, Kyle Chandler playing Hal. I know I keep saying flashbacks, but I don't think she'd be a present-day Carol Ferris, given what we've heard about Sheriff Kelly. And I think it would just, honestly, her role will be supporting and contextualizing what is going on with Hal Jordan in present day, why he's this Lantern legend who is nearing retirement, and why he's taken on John Stewart, and also maybe his reluctance to even get in this romantic relationship with Sheriff Kerry. I've said that a lot as well. I think he might be reluctant to it. He might not be interested. He's closed that door forever because Carol was his love. But, you know, sometimes that's not the way attraction and love works. And, you know, they might have a good chemistry, but that also brings back memories of Carol. I don't know, but I do see the vibe there. I see that unfolding on the screen in my head. Let me know what you think of that, but back to Past Boba. Now, we also have some updates in terms of toys. I know not everyone is interested in this, but even if you're not going to buy these toys yourself, it's just interesting to see the little cues and clues that we get from them, such as we see the McFarlane, I believe, DC Multiverse figures of Ultraman, one being a battle-damaged suit, which is a bit more blackened versus the purple figure right to the left there. But you can see on the black version of the battle-damaged suit that there is some purple underneath, so it's kind of like through maybe some heat, maybe being scraped across the floor or something, it gets a bit more blackened. But continuing on here, we also have a cool little Metamorpho figure. I do want to stress, as per usual, this doesn't mean that this is going to happen in the movie, where he has this bloody little kind of Metamorpho hammer, or whatever you want to call that. However, it is within Metamorpho's ability and skill set. Now, McFarlane are also announcing the T-Craft, the T-Ship, which is Mr. Terrific's high-tech vehicle that we see in the trailers. And then we've got even more Superman Funko Pops here, from Ultraman to Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, Superman arriving to the fortress, the Hammer of Boravia. But, ladies and gentlemen, there is quite a connection here that they've inadvertently given away, and you may not have caught it already just through me showing these photos, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to skip to the next timestamp, just because basically one of the pop vinyl listings, it kind of does give away something. So if you want to stick around for that, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so here we have the Hammer of Boravia. Well, let's just go from the beginning. Superman and the Fortress of Solitude. Pop vinyl number 582. Okay, Mr. Terrific is 584. Guy Gardner is 585. The Hammer of Boravia is number 583. We also have Ultraman here. He is also 583. So, Hammer of Boravia, number 583. And we have an alternate pop vinyl of number 583, which is Ultraman. Now, usually when Funko Pops do this, it essentially means that DC's Ultraman is the Chase variant pop vinyl of the Hammer of Boravia pop. So that naturally leads us to believe that Lex puts Ultraman in the Hammer of Boravia suit. So you see why that is a bit of a spoiler, but it's also what I was trying to get into before that, is that we still don't know who Ultraman is. Like, we don't know strictly under that mask, is it a freaking clone of Superman, Lex Luthor, so on and so forth. But what this does basically give away, I believe, is that as per my, and this has already been a theory as well, is that Luthor, as a result of trying to turn the public against Superman, and obviously his actions in flying over to Boravia to stop that war in of itself, as Lois points out, could have some unforeseen consequences that he didn't really go over. So long story long, Luthor wants to make people resent Superman, being like, if you had never flown over there in the first place, you wouldn't have brought this massive juggernaut tank villain over to Metropolis, and thus I wouldn't be in danger, Superman. There was no original Hammer of Boravia responding to Superman's involvement. This is just a plan from Luthor to put Ultraman in that suit, pretend that he's from Boravia, and cause all this crap. And I guess, all while I may not be completely 100% accurate there with that theory, you know, more or less, I think this is what this pop vinyl reveals. Now, up next, one of the biggest stories of today's video is, of course, all of the word on the street about the Superman test screenings. So, initially, we had, I believe, this World of Real article going around. The headline goes, Superman faced major changes after test screenings, reshoots, less humor, shorter runtime, which, you know, led into that rumor of the 2 hours and 2 minutes thing, a new editor and composer. So without covering this whole article, because what I do want to cover is some scooper details from some of the more reliable scoopers out there, in where I do believe if you read between the lines, there is definitely some things that are true here. The issue is when there's test screenings for any movie, really, but obviously with Superman having a bit more of a lens of scrutiny on it, it's being misconstrued into even larger kind of fear-mongering. Now, I can neither confirm or deny that some of these changes could have yielded a better or worse movie. I won't know until I see it, but I will go through some of them and just give my thoughts on it. But I just wanted to put that out there, that just because you may hear things of what I'm about to say in how they're changing things, some things along the way, that is the case with a shite ton of movies out there. So what I want to bring up is a lot of Viewer Anon's tweets and some of his posts online, because Viewer Anon is, I would say, quite a reliable scooper, one of the more reliable ones out there. You know, things of his, even with regards to Superman, have been absolutely proven. So I do want to say, take it with a grain of salt, of course, but Viewer Anon initially said over on Twitter, when quote tweeting the World of Real article, it's always possible that someone has info I don't, but just for the record, I've heard nothing about the film's structure being reworked. And if there were several new scenes added to the reshoots, it's news to me. I've been told that when you include every round of pickups, reshoots, or whatever you want to call them, there was less than a week of total additional photography on Superman. And then we even had DC Film News get in on this, saying, I can corroborate this, there was a day and a half of pickup shots confirmed by Gunn per the Hollywood Reporter's report, an additional 3.5 days in Atlanta. So essentially what they're saying there is, if you have articles like The World of Real saying, oh my God, they're reworking a whole film's structure and to this, that, and the other. Well, I can't technically prove or disprove that. They're saying that the days that they did have some pickup things and whatnot were definitely so short that it wouldn't constitute a massive reworking of the film structure and, you know, new scenes being crammed in there. That would require a lot more extensive work to justify the claims that are being made here from some of these test screenings. Let's cover some of the details that are being claimed to have been changed in the test screenings as far as we are aware. So Viewer Anon was initially asked on Reddit to back up this post that Resident Justice made on Twitter. And Resident Justice said on their Twitter profile, to clarify further, the changes that were made in the recent test screening compared to the last one were really just trimming down a couple of scenes and removing a couple of jokes. Nothing major was altered. They just want to ensure that they're striking the right tonal balance. This user then asks, as per what a lot of people are kind of freaking out about, like, can you confirm this? From what I've seen, a lot of people are worried that these changes could be from Warner Brothers messing with the film, but I'm not sure about that. From everything you said, they just seem to be small adjustments from here and there. And Viewer Anon says, yep, that's pretty much what I've heard. Most of the edits are just about locking in the tone, tightening jokes, pretty normal stuff. And that's what I agree with. Like, I think that is the truth. It's just people kind of start losing their minds. Now, up next, there was a thread made on the DCU Leaks Reddit, which was a compilation of Viewer Anon's Superman comments on the Box Office Theory website, I believe. And Viewer Anon begins responding to some people in the comments saying, there were notes. The movie was tweaked a fair bit after the last test screening. I know that they've taken some of the more risky jokes, including my favorite joke in the movie, out of it. Another comment reply he made was, I don't think it's been a disaster in the editing room, but there have definitely been changes from how it was originally conceived. They did a bunch of late work on the score as well and brought in a second composer. Now, the second composer thing, in my mind, is very believable because, believe it or not, you can just actually go to the Superman official trailer score upload that they've uploaded to Warner Brothers, one of Warner Brothers' channels, and it says literally that the music is composed by John Murphy, who, you know, was the sole composer for Superman, but not any longer because it says John Murphy and David Fleming. So they have brought in a second composer. Now, some other Reddit replies that Viewer Anon gave was when being asked about the length of the Superman movie being 2 hours, 2 minutes, which Gunn has recently debunked. He said, "That sounds about right to me. I know they tweaked a number of things after the test screening. Trimming 15 minutes of fat is pretty normal." Now, despite this being debunked, this is kind of what I was getting into earlier. The movie might not be literally 2 hours and 2 minutes, but could 15 minutes have still been trimmed out, like trimming the fat out the movie to kind of make it work better, flow better, or whatever they did, for whatever purpose they did that for? Yes. So it might not be 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 minutes, but it might be 2 hours, 8 minutes, 2 hours, 12 minutes. It could have been into the 2 hours and 20 something minutes originally. You get what I'm saying. So I still think that it is nearer to the 2 hour mark versus nearer to that of the 2.5 hour mark. But hey, could be wrong about that. So when Viewer Anon was asked how they think the reaction to Superman will be from the general audience, they reply, "I have no clue, honestly." And the user then replies, "Damn, I thought you'd say it'd be a fairly good film or a pretty solid one, but hey, it's whatever." And Viewer Anon just simply says, "I just know it's been divisive. Some people really like it, some really don't. It's hard to project that on a way wider audience." So my thoughts on this is quite simply that Viewer Anon is just a guy trying to gauge what he's heard, right? And what do you do with that? I think his answer makes sense here. It is hard to project that feedback that he's heard through test screenings onto a way wider audience, like the world's audience of whom can see this movie. And test screenings, when they're reported as being mixed at times, I mean, that is either some people really liked it and some people somewhat didn't. So this is what I mean. Some people might hear that. Some people and outlets might make articles on it. Some people on YouTube may make videos about that to kind of further their agenda about, oh my God, this is going to be super shit. I'm not like defending it or condemning it. I'm just saying, okay, we're going to have to wait and see. To me, that sounds like a lot of test screenings. Some people like it, some people don't like it. And when that's been a bit of a response, how can you possibly call it on the general audience? You know, there's even been test screenings for movies that were pretty poor, but when it got into the box office, it was widely praised. So you may then ask, what's the point of test screenings? I mean, yeah, that's where it gets a bit messy, I suppose, because you could be editing your movie via feedback or stuff that truly doesn't reflect a massive audience. That is what I would be personally worried about as a director myself, of how much do you really take in about it? How much do you tighten up the kind of plot of the movie and to whatever other changes you could make? Now, this next one could enter some, well, not massive spoiler territory, but it's more potentially removing a scene of violence in the film, which I don't know if I agree with, if this is true. So when this user points out that some other scoops a while back claim that Krypto could have been hurt, but obviously the trailer shows Krypto being the one to do some hurting, Viewer Anon replies, "So I can say this, since I heard it changed, but Ultraman did originally punch Krypto in the head, knocking him out with a loud yelp. I've heard that is no longer in the movie." So I guess that they may have cut that out because of, I don't know, potentially like animal cruelty-esque kind of reasons, and oh man, maybe that was a bit too far. But like for me, I'm like, nah, like that, I'm sure that's fine. This is a flying Kryptonian, kind of Krypto the super dog, who is literally bites a chunk out of the engineer's face. I'm sure audiences can handle a dog being like smacked to the side by Ultraman. And also, if that has been cut out, it makes me wonder if in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, like, will Krypto be hit by an arrow? Because he does. And, like, is that too harsh to see on the big screen? Personally, for me, like, I love dogs, but I would be okay with that. Like, it's within the context of the story, it's all right. But why, if we hypothetically entertain this is true, why cut that out? Maybe it didn't land so well. Now, next up, Reddit user said, "You initially talked about Brainiac in this. Is this still true?" Now, Viewer Anon says, no, none of that stuff, Brainiac, Waller, Sam Lane, is in the movie. And I've been told directly that there is no post-credit Brainiac tease or anything of the sort. So no Brainiac, no Waller, no Sam Lane. If that's true, I think that's I mean, I almost was half expecting it, since there's been like no shed of anything Sam Lane teased or a casting, that we weren't going to get into Lois's father and how she views her new boyfriend of the past several months and whatnot. Maybe that's something to look forward to in the future. The Brainiac thing, though, one thing I do have to offer out there is that we have Humberto Gonzalez, who is a reporter for The Wrap, recently teasing on Twitter a little scooper eye emoji with a picture of Brainiac. Yet we have viewer Anon recently here, as of when I'm making this video, saying no Brainiac, Waller, or Sam Lane is in the movie. No post-credit scene with Brainiac. Yet we have, this other thing over here saying this. So basically, hearing different things from different... I mean, granted, Humberto didn't say it's a post-credit scene, but, if you're doing the scooper emoji type thing and posting a picture of Brainiac, and there's a Superman movie coming out, what else would you be teasing other than Brainiac's involvement in some way, shape, or form? And I think most people, my takeaway from this is, again, hypothetically entertaining if it's true, or like whatever with this whole thing. With this movie's villain being Lex, and you have secondary antagonists with Ultraman, the Engineer, and other things going on, I doubt they're going to cram in Brainiac as a big bad. So if there is a Brainiac, I think maybe what Humberto could be teasing here is that somehow, in some way, shape, or form, potentially Brainiac could be set up in some way. So that doesn't even mean, obviously a way to do that would be a post-credit scene. But Gunn would only include Brainiac in a post-credit scene if he was very intent on actually following through on that, in some way in the future. But you could maybe craftily include Brainiac and his arrival in the future through, I don't know, maybe in that pocket dimension-y kind of unfolding chamber, quantum, can't speak right now, that Lex has got. Maybe there's recovered alien technology there. Maybe there's a Brainiac drone. Maybe they're going to do more of a Milton Fine-esque human version of Brainiac before going full-on Brainiac that's teased in the movie as a character. There's all kinds of possibilities. So maybe a detail like that has been learned where it doesn't dive head over heels into a Brainiac tease like a post-credits scene would. But that doesn't technically rule out Gunn still finding a way to allude to that character. So I think overall, those are all the deets that I could kind of compile together from all the people who are claiming it from, I would say, reputable sources. Obviously, we don't really know at the end of the day for sure, but hey, that's what's being said out there. I don't think we should freak out. I think on the bottom line, what you have to understand is that this is a very ordinary process. I wouldn't read into, oh my God, if they took this joke out and took that joke out, or they're trying to establish the tone of the film at this portion through tightening that part up. That is a very ordinary process when perfecting your film in its final stages. As I always say here, we are going to have to wait and see. But am I concerned? No. As of right now, no. This is kind of ordinary. So the last story of today's video, guys, is an update on the Elseworlds Keanu Reeves Constantine 2. And it's an update that I didn't actually expect. Here from the direct, Keanu Reeves is not happy with Constantine 2 scripts, says co-star Peter Stormare, who played Lucifer in the first movie. Initially, Stormare reveals that there's been a lot of back and forth. So it's been a lot of back and forth because I think Keanu Reeves, which I know pretty good, is not so happy with the scripts and usually what comes out of the studios, because the first one wasn't that successful in the beginning. It became a sleeper and became a cult movie. And now it is one of the biggest cult movies ever. But to do a sequel, the studios want to have, cars flying in the air. They want to have people doing flip-flops and fighting action scenes. Now he continues to say, and I think Keanu says, I've done John Wick. This movie is spiritual. It's about demons and regular people, and I wanted to keep it that way. Now, skipping forward to this bit, it turns into an action movie and not going deeper and deeper into the characters. I think he wants to do his character again, Constantine, as grounded as it was in the first one. You don't have to add a lot of action and shootouts. You have other movies. Don't turn it into a big Marvel, don't turn it into us flying around in a harness all the time and shooting each other up. Don't bring in the big guns, just let it be. So, you know, reading between the lines there, you know, Keanu Reeves wants it to literally be a sequel to Constantine. Yet he's had very successful movies since then, like John Wick, where he's exceptional, right? At the stunt work, it's very high action. So I think they look at Keanu Reeves and they see, okay, with a Constantine sequel, we want you to do a lot of maybe action stuff. So, you know, obviously it wouldn't quite be John Wick, but maybe they're thinking of having Constantine using his powers. And yeah, as they were joking about, like, in a harness, you know, quick camera shots, maybe some, you know, getting the gun for a demon and blowing him, you know, really modern day Keanu Reeves stuff. Well, it's not even modern. I mean, you know, we go back to the bloody Matrix and stuff, but I think they want that signature. So I have to admit, if this script keeps getting written the way that this is, then it might not get made, because Keanu is clearly expressing, even though this is secondhand here, I mean, as they say in the initial quote, Keanu Reeves is not so happy with the scripts and usually what comes out of studios these days. Like, not that he's shiting on films in general there. It's just, I don't think he wants Constantine 2 to be another kind of high spectacle, less introspection and emotion and, you know, really getting into the depth and substance of Constantine. But no, let's get a Fast and Furious style kind of Black Adam type crazy Constantine 2. He's not interested in that. And what, you know, in Hollywood these days has led to a bit of spectacle fatigue. He wants, sure, some spectacle in there, but also Constantine depth. And the way it's being written right now, they seem to be catering to the former. But Keanu Reeves, at the end of the day, is very creatively involved in this. And, you know, he's not going to say yes to a script that's being written by the writer if it's going this direction. So that's where we're at. Let me know what you think of that. I completely agree with Keanu Reeves and his idea of the way it should be. That's the way I think it should be done, because you don't want another throwaway spectacle movie where you're like, okay, cool, but you walk out the movie not really having it stay with you. I'm not interested in that. Don't make it if you're not going to make it the way that he has his idea for it. And that's the way I think movies should be treated in general. Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut up. This video's been going on for bloody ages. Let me know your thoughts on everything that we dug into today. If you like this video, I'd greatly appreciate if you left a like on it to help spread the video out there in the algorithm. Consider subscribing for more news roundups just like this. But until next time, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.